everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my rereading of the Lord of the Rings vlog, in which I am obviously going to read the second book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, The Two Towers. I have already started, but I wanted to talk a little bit about my expectations first with you guys, if that's okay. From when I read it nearly 20 years ago, I remember that this book was my favorite, especially the first half, when we follow Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli in Rohan, and also a little bit of Merry and Pippin meeting the Ents. Especially the first part, I remember liking that a lot. And then the second half, I don't have a lot of memories from it. Once again, I'm excited to see what the differences are going to be between the books and the movie, because as I've said again previously, the movies are freshly in my mind. I think from what I've seen of the second half of the Fellowship of the Ring, there won't be that many differences. I know the book ends at a different place. The movies end on a kind of cliffhanger and the books don't, or it's the other way around. I don't really remember. I'm hoping that we're going to see some relationships between characters evolve a bit more. Mostly between Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and maybe some of the Rohan riders. I remember Eowyn also is finally going to be part of the book, and I really liked her character, but now I think I'm going to see her through the different eyes, see how oppressed she is, maybe. Yeah, I'm hoping there will be a little bit less of the history of Middle-earth, but I don't see that happening. I think that once again there's going to be a lot of, see how I've thought about this world that I created. Look, let me have someone sing a song. But I'm hoping for a little bit more characters. And obviously we're going to have Smeagol also. That is going to play a part, Smeagol Gollum. And as the book that I'm reading is narrated by Andy Serkis, I'm hoping that Smeagol will really come to life. Smeagol Gollum. So yeah, those are kind of my expectations. Now, as I said, I have already started a little bit. What's his name? Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas have been running through the plains of the Rohirrim, and I have the song that goes with that vividly in my head. I see the images also, so it's pa 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 all the time, and it's great. They're trying to save Merry and Pippin, who've been captured by orcs and Uruk-hai. They don't really know that they're Uruk-hai yet. And on the way into Rohan, they also meet some of the Rohirrim, and Eomer also they meet, gives them horses. And they continue their chase to the Fangorn Forest, where they know that the orcs have already been slain by the Rohirrim, and they're hoping that they will find some kind of trace of the hobbits. And that's when the story continues with Merry and Pippin, how they escape the orcs and then in the Fangorn Forest meet the Ents. I liked seeing the Ents again and Treebeard talking about the history of his people. With him, somehow I liked it. I like that he's kind of sad because they have lost the women Ents. And I like that story. And now the Ents have had their council. From what I remember, the council took a lot of time, but that wasn't the case in the book. I like that the Ents are very slow, even when Andy Serkis talks about, like the Ents do when he's talking, when Treebeard is talking, it's really slow, and tell me about your story, but do not haste. That's cute. It's cute. It's good also to take the time. And what we've now had is that they meet the White Rider and they discover that Gandalf has been resurrected, is still alive. Don't really know if he really dies or not. I think he's kind of just still alive, but that now he's Gandalf the White, and they're really happy about that. And Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Gandalf are on the doorsteps of Edoras, and they're going to meet Theoden King and discover that Wormtail is trying to take over and Saruman is taking over. So yeah, that's what has been going on. Just like the previous one, enjoying it, curious to see what will come. I don't think we see a lot of Minas Tirith in this one. I think that comes for the third book. I don't really remember where the second book stops for like that part of the story. We're gonna have Helm's Deep and stuff, but yeah, I don't really know where it stops, so we're going to see. See you next time. Because it's been a couple of days and I have made some progress. So right now I've finished the first half of the book, well, where we follow Aragorn. Well, basically, when we look at the Fellowship, we follow the fun people. And now I'm at the part where we follow the less fun people, being Sam and Frodo, but we'll get to that. Yeah, finished the part with Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas trying to save the hobbitses and finding Rohan and finding Gandalf again and Merry and Pippin meeting the Ents. It was nothing special. There weren't any things that I was really surprised by other than the whole attack on Helm's Deep being smaller, I would say, than in the movies. And what else? The role of Eowyn is smaller. So one of the difficulties that I have with Lord of the Rings, at least that I had previous to starting rereading, because now I have extra difficulties, is that there is not a lot of diversity. I mean, for a world that has a lot of non-humans, they're still very white male-ish. Heteronormative, everything. We have 3 women, well 4 if you include Shelob, and in the movies at least one that has the most power is Eowyn, and in the movies she has a role, she actually says stuff, and in the books she doesn't even do that until now. She's just standing there next to Theoden and she tries to help him when he stumbles, but Aragorn looks at her at one point, but they don't communicate. There isn't the whole thing where, in the movie, where she says, oh, I'm afraid of being in a cage. And like, oh, women being in the cage, wonder what that refers to. No, there's none of that until now in the books. Maybe that'll come up in the third book. I have low expectations, and I'm afraid they're going to not even be met. So that was a bit of a bummer. But other than that, yeah, I think... Again, we had a little bit of past things going on, so stories about the past, because you have to meet Rohan and learn a little bit more about how they're built up. And the other point where it bothered me a little bit is that when Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and the whole Rohan crew go to Isengard, they see Merry and Pippin, and you spend a chapter having Merry and Pippin telling you about what their adventures after, well, Merry and Pippin tell you about the taking over of Isengard. And again, that is something that, why not just let us be in on the actions? I mean, Merry and Pippin are fine storytellers, but I don't think it added much that they told the story instead of us being there when it happened as a reader. So that was my one little other caveat thing that happened. Nothing special. I had hoped to love it more. You see a little bit, however, of interaction between Gimli and Legolas. You kind of see their friendship being their friendship. That is good. I had not expected. That's improvement already from the last book. But you don't really see it with a lot of other characters. But still, it's something. And as I said, now I am at the Frodo and Sam part. I knew the second book would still be fine. I remember the third book being horrible, so I'm kind of dreading that and trying to be happy that I'm not at the harsh part of that story, where they're going through Mordor and just nothing happens. But already now, nothing happens much. I'm already struggling, not really interested. The highlight, however, is that because Andy Serkis is narrating it, he does a little bit of voices with the hobbits, so he speaks Scottish when Pippin speaks, for example. I might have already said this, but now Gollum is in play, and he does the Gollum voice. I mean, he is the Gollum actor, Gollum and Smeagol, so that brings it to life so much. The moment Gollum started talking, I was like, yes! Somehow it just elevates it. There's this recognition. He narrates it already very well. When people talk, you get the emotions of the characters and the gruffiness or the enthusiasm or the naivete. You get that through the voices. But with Smeagol, it just adds another level because it's spot on to what is in my brain. So that's been good. But other than that, nothing special. I mean, I'm still speeding through it. I'll update you when I'm further. I'm looking forward to meeting the whole crew of Faramir when they go to Osgiliath. Is that what it's called? They see Faramir, and I remember liking that, so looking forward to that. Speak to you in a while. I have now finished The Two Towers completely. Since the last time I spoke to you, let me see, I think Frodo and Sam had just come across Gollum. He's been leading them through still the land on the side of Mordor, no, on the side of Gondor, I mean, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get into Mordor. They've been to the Black Gate, decided that's not going to happen, and then Gollum talks about that there's another way, and they go in that direction. So that's the direction of the Kirit Ungol and the very large stairs that they then have to climb. But on their way over there, they are intercepted by Faramir and his rangers. And I really like that part. Faramir has a bigger role in the book than in the movies. Yes, I'm sorry, I keep comparing the two, but that's the way my brain works. Faramir talks a lot more. He has a little bit more power. He's very how am I gonna describe it? He's noble, is what I'm going to go with. He kind of figures out that what Frodo's secret is. He asks Frodo a lot of questions because he doesn't want to let these wandering hobbits around in this neighborhood that they're not supposed to be wandering around in. So he asks tough questions and he tries to understand what's going on. He knows Boromir is dead. But from the words of Frodo and Sam and stuff that he's also figured out on his own, he kind of starts understanding that their quest is important and that it should really remain secret. And he kind of understands that also his men aren't supposed to learn about it. And at one point he has this decision to make as to maybe take the ring back to Gondor and maybe use it in the power in the same way, the struggle, I mean, against Sauron, and in the same way kind of as Boromir was pushing for. And he is, I don't know, he's perfect. I'm kind of in love with Faramir, to be honest. But he decides to, no, I don't even want to make this decision. Don't even show me the thing. I don't want to think about this because I know that I'm a man, that I will fail. And trusting Gandalf and trusting the decisions that have been made by people that have more knowledge than him. And I also really appreciated his view on Boromir. He kind of knows what Boromir's problems can be. He knows that he's aware that his brother finds it very hard, that he will never rule Gondor as king, that he will only be regent something, can't remember the name. And he's always been thinking about that. And he accepts that about Boromir. He sees that as, well, that's not ideal, and something else would be preferable. But he's not judging Boromir in the choices that he made, while still not approving of them. And he does that in such an accepting way that I found was marvelous. I really appreciate Faramir's whole being. He doesn't necessarily get to evolve in this book yet because he's already perfect from the start. But then again, maybe I'm visualizing the Faramir that is in the movies, and he has reddish hairs and curls, and that happens to me, one of my kryptonites. So that also doesn't help. But yeah, really appreciate Faramir. And now Frodo, Sam, and Gollum have been reunited, and they have been up and up and up and up and up the stairs, and Shelob has made her appearance. Shelob is different also from what I remembered. She's a lot uglier for one. And I like that you get a little bit, for her at least, I like that you got a little bit of her backstory and how she's been around long before the elves were around, and I'd wonder if she or Tom Bombadil is older. If you know, I'd love to hear. So I kind of liked her backstory, and now we've got a little bit more of feelings between Frodo and Sam. They're still very attached to one another. You don't have the same thing as in the movies where Frodo sends Sam away for a while. That doesn't happen. But there is this moment where Frodo is very tired and then he falls asleep on Sam's lap, and Sam is holding his head. He's got one hand on Frodo's head and the other on his chest and stuff like that. For something that, if you look at it physically, the way they behave, there's still this distance, this weird relationship between them because of the master-servant relationship that I keep struggling with. But I've said that in my part 1 of this vlog. So yeah, that's still been a thing. Even when Frodo sort of half dies because Shelob did something to him and Sam thinks he's dead, it's still Mr. Frodo. Still in that he still sees him as his master, and that blocks their relationship so much. And even Frodo, the way Faramir talked about them, the way Sam talks about Sam, it's always still Frodo being the more intelligent one, and I don't believe that. Maybe he has a better understanding of things, but Sam's heart and the decisions that he made make him so much more valuable than how a lot of people seem to look at Frodo. I don't know. Frodo just whines a lot in my eyes. So yeah, finished book 2. I'm going to download the 3rd book so that I can continue with it in the next couple of days. I should have it finished probably in the first part of May, which means that I will have listened to the 3 books in less than a month and a half, which is a good tempo. Good tempo. There'll be less Gollum in the 3rd book, which is sad, but I'm looking forward to seeing more of Merry and Pippin and going to have Denethor. I kind of appreciated Denethor. He's very melodramatic. I love it in the movies when I don't know what it's going to be like in the book, so maybe I shouldn't talk about it right now, but he has this episode where he decides he's going to burn his son, but then that is thwarted by Gandalf, and Denethor throws himself on the pyre, then he's in flames, and then he decides to run away, so we've got this running fiery person, and then he jumps off of the cliffs at Minas Tirith, and the flame is blown off because of all the wind of the falling, and that has I've always found that so sad and so funny that this man wanted to die by fire, but then threw himself off a cliff, and then the fire was blown off. That's so sad. Okay, yeah, so that was the 2nd book. Not as good as I remembered it in my head. I think right now from the first, I would appreciate the 1st book maybe a little bit more because we've got more characters. But yeah, it was still fine. I'm being a little bit critical, but I'm still enjoying them, which is good. See you in the next video, which will be the 3rd and last part of my Lord of the Rings reading vlog, because in case you hadn't noticed by all my criticism, and especially my criticism of the amount of data and history that we have, I'm not going to be reading any of the other books. The Hobbit never liked, and I can't say that now I'm interested in the Silmarillion or any of the other books. I'm very sorry. If you love them, tell me why, because maybe I can be swayed. Bye.
Ba-chum, ba-chum, chum.